is Herb, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is February 21st, 1984. So I've been at this for a while. I got sober, but I didn't get sane. Um, I got sober before I went to AA. And fortunately, I was asked to experiment and go to AA and see, kick the tires, if you will. I want to be succinct because I want to stay focused on step four. And I also want to be succinct and stay focused on step four from the 12 and 12. Um, but I have to put it in a context of my experience. My experience is not the 12 and 12. My experience is the big book. But I'm going to focus on my reading of and review of currently the 12 and 12. The big book was published in 1939 when Bill was 4 or 5 years sober. He didn't have a lot of information, but he had the structure, basically interpreted the guidelines from the Oxford group. The 6 steps he converted into a more precise process as he had experienced it, and turned it into 12 steps, which he codified in the big book, the textbook of Alcoholics Anonymous. 20 years later, almost, 1953, I believe, he wrote 12 and 12 as a commentary on the steps. And I emphasized that for a long time because of my experience with the big book as the textbook. I kind of put the 12 and 12 as a second class guide, if you will, commentary to the step four. As of tonight, reading it thoroughly, preparing to make some comments about it and stay consistent with the theme of what we're doing here in terms of looking at emotional sobriety and the 12 and 12, I had a whole new experience with the 12 and 12. It is quite accurate, quite complete, a deep approach to the unpacking of, and Annalise, thank you so much for the words you used, our demands and our expectations. I didn't know that I didn't know that I was alcoholic. For 5 years in Alcoholics Anonymous with a sponsor and going to meetings, I didn't know that I didn't know about change. And I didn't change until I did the steps. At 5 years of sobriety out of the big book, a story for a different day. As a result of 3 different journeys through the steps in the big book, I had a powerful change, a spiritual awakening, different spiritual experiences, milestones that I could describe. It would take a while, but it doesn't matter. The total point of step four is, and I think Chuck C said it, is to uncover, discover, and discard. And that's now, it captures my experience, and it kind of is intimated in the 12-step commentary in the 12 and 12, the 4th-step commentary in the 12 and 12. He talks about instincts gone awry. Oh, so I have a whole new respect for it in the 12 and 12. And you can see his awareness, his consciousness coming to the forefront of emotional sobriety. No wonder the 12 and 12 is peppered with the phrase emotional sobriety, and the term is not acknowledged at all in the big book because he didn't have that consciousness. It's a progressive consciousness, as probably each one of ours is progressive over time. As long as we stay, I use the term, gently pressed up against this spirit, this process, this methodology of attempting to improve our consciousness, But he starts with instincts gone awry, which is how he talks a little bit about the uh, the human condition, the underlying causes and condition of our addiction in the big book and in step 10, in step 4 and step 10. In step 4, he talks about, in the big book, resentment and fear and sex. In the 10th step, in the big book, he talks about resentment and fear and dishonesty and self-centeredness. But in the 12 and 12, he captures it. He's got more information about psychology, I believe, at that point, and he talks about instincts gone awry. And we've learned in biology and psychology about fight, flight, and freeze. And that gave me the paradigm when he used the term instincts, connected to resentment, fight, connected to fear, flight. And then how does it work with sex? Sex is an instinct, of course, but oh, it's a part of a dishonesty, a camouflage, a freeze. And it's not in the 12 and 12 that way, but it is indicated, I think, as a really good model for understanding the shadows in us, the darkness in us, that is the source of the agitation, the disturbance that brings us to addiction, because that's how we soothe and reduce or neutralize our addictions. Um, and he says in the big book clearly, page 62, that selfishness, self-centeredness is the root, and our addiction is merely the symptom of and the manifestation of. In the 12 and 12, he talks about we have a soul sickness, a soul, and we need soul surgery. One of the tenets of the Oxford group was that this whole work was about soul surgery. And I don't think it's any accident that Bill uses the term bedevilments in the big book, the textbook, on page 52, that behavioral description of self-centeredness, the bedevilments, to be controlled as if by devils. And I commented on the use of the term demand and expectations. These are the puppet strings that we put on reality, or actually are we put on ourselves about reality. And we have this delusion that in fact we manage reality when in fact reality is unmanageable. It's immutable. It's non-negotiable. This is the emotional sobriety that Bill is asking us to confront about reality. Reality just is. Most of us take it very personally. I am the center of the universe was my delusion, and I wasn't aware that I wasn't aware of that. I am the center of my reality. I am the center of my life. I'm just not the center of life itself. And that was a rude awakening. And it took 3 journeys through the steps out of the big book to come to what I consider to be kind of a full connection to and understanding and relief from the healing that takes place as the result of the uncovering, discovering, and discarding, being changed. In the big book, my experience was that the resentment had 2 major exercises that I had over 2 different times going through the steps. One was column 3, where I saw my beliefs, those expectations, those delusions, the lenses through which I looked, which were warped. I couldn't see the lenses because I was looking through the lenses. And because those beliefs were warped, what I saw was distorted. And therefore, I was not acting in connection with reality. I was reacting and acting based on my mythology about myself and the world and other people. And in the 4th column, and there's not a fourth column, but there's a paragraph that has been interpreted as the fourth column to bring it home, that turnaround that Byron Katie talks about. Um, from that self-centeredness to other-centeredness, that fourth column revealed to me the truth of the lie of the third column. Those beliefs that I had were lies. They were myths. They were stories I'd either been told or told myself. Not consciously, mostly, unconsciously absorbed from my culture, from my family, from my experiences. But the fourth column revealed to me my motives, my corrupt motives, all about myself. 5 different questions about different aspects of my self-centeredness. And a process to understand that I'm powerless over it. That's the key to understanding, I think, any step, but especially step 4 in each of the components, resentment and fear and sex. He introduces us, Bill Wilson, the big book, introduces us to a prayer practice for the removal of resentment, for the diminishment and removal of fear, for the creation of a sex ideal, the knowledge of it, the accuracy of it, the healthy of it, and the ability to actually live by those principles. And that in the fear inventory, a series of questions about, oh, why do I have it, and what would happen, and what would happen, helped me get in touch with the lack of reality of the kind of fear that I had, the unhealthy fear that I had, especially the fear of failure, the fear of criticism, the fear of not looking good. And fortunately, I was in some therapy, actually, with Dr. Berger at the time, which helped really put some psychological flesh on those bones. And then the sex inventory completely changed my life. There's 9 questions by my estimate anyway, in the inventory in the big book. But that ninth question was so important. What would I do instead? What should I do instead? For the very first time, confronting the fact that there are principles, emotional sobriety. There are principles in the universe. It just is. This is nature. This is the nature of material reality. This is an organic, biological, physiological, chemical, material reality. You can't change it. This is the way it operates. Reality just is. Reality never adjusts. And that was one of the points he made in the 12 and 12. We have a maladjustment to life and unreasonable demands and expectations. He said he called them the termites that destroy the foundation of life, these expectations and demands. Dr. Berger and psychologists and philosophers too talk about the false self. That's what's created here in our survival mechanism. We don't know we're creating this actor. We don't know we're creating this Hollywood storefront, this mask, this persona. It's all about safety, security, social connections, and satisfaction. And we're doing the best we can. We're just not very competent. I'm not. I didn't have that particular role models. I'm not blaming anybody. It was my responsibility to grow up, and I didn't until I was 5 years sober at age 48 doing this work, consciously knowing that there was something amiss and being led through a methodology that allowed me to identify specifically what that was and how to correct it. He talks about the promise in the 12 and 12, the promise of happiness, the peace of mind and the serenity, and he used the term balance. Is we need to adjust ourselves to the conditions of life as they are, to nature as it is, to form partnerships. I see he says it in more than one place, especially I think in chapter 12 in or step 12 in the 12 and 12. The joy of living is the ability to form partnerships. He gives another word in the 12 and 12 in step 4, the brotherhood or that Philadelphia, the loving of people, if you will, or the healthy connection to community. Um, see, I think I'm going to stop there. If you are interested in more of my teaching, my explanation, my knowledge, my experience with regard to step 4 from my journey, uh, you could go both to my website, herbk.com, and there's a lot of material there that'll support any interest that you have. But also the YouTube channel that I have recorded workshops that I've done for the last 30 years, weekly workshops. We spend 4 months on step 4, and it's that challenging, but it's the single most important work that I have done in order to recognize that I needed to be changed and that there was a process and a very effective process for change. There's lots of other self-development, personal development, therapeutic processes. All the rest of those have all been, I've explored many of them, and many of them have been very helpful. But I've never had anything more effective, immediately and long-term and permanent, than the changes that were brought about over about a 12-year period, applying this methodology with 3 different teachers, their different explanations, their different experiences, their different suggestions, their accountability, their monitoring and helping me manage the process.
All right.
I'll just say that I missed when you guys were going over the steps the original time in this workshop. And I'll definitely go back and listen to that material. Thank you.
There won't be a test. Don't worry about it, Julia.
Well, I did a workshop with Alan or helped facilitate a workshop with Alan on Sunday. And one of the things which he says, I've heard it from all the presenters at one point or another, is this is my understanding and consciousness about this topic today, right? In what develops over the next 5 days, 5 minutes, 5 months, in terms of how I interpret it and what I talk about, might be completely different. That's the beauty of this thing. It's like it's every time I look at the words on the page, they present something different to me because I'm a different person this time around when I look at it. That's why I love going. I mean, my 12 and 12 is falling apart because of that. It's just, and I'll just a kind of an opening comment is that I don't know if I knew that he used the word termites in the literature. I
Love
know
that.
that's such a great visual, right? As like eating away at the foundation, chewing away, gnawing away, and soon enough, it'll be dust if I don't address it. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. Thom, you want to kick things off?
Sure. These are the most concise. You must have done a good job with being concise, Herb, because these are the most concise notes I've ever taken when you were talking. Usually they're all over. I have things on the wall and things like that. But I'll just write this down. I wrote this down. It says emotional sobriety is not about how we manage reality, because we don't manage reality. And that's the big illusion we got to get over. Emotional sobriety is how we manage ourselves, our beliefs, attitudes, assumptions, expectations, ourselves in relationship to reality. And what I put in there is what Alan and I have been talking about lately, is learning how to no longer be offended by reality. And I'll just close this with this thing that was from my morning reading from the philosopher Epictetus. He talks about that we all make choices based on self-interest. He says everybody does that. But he says the big question is whether or not we base those decisions based on self-interest on externals or on moral choices, on what's right or what's wrong. It's like that, I love things, and you do this for me, Herb. I love things that can, because they won't. It's sort of like you're saying, Tom. They're going to shift around a lot. They won't always stay that simple. But sometimes I just like it when something is that simple. It's like you go like, okay, that's a very clarifying decision thing. Okay, am I making this decision based on self-interest, based on externals, or on what I believe is the right thing to do, being the best version of myself that I can be? It's like it's to me it's a very clear measure. And I'm not always going to come out on top when I'm being honest with myself when I do that, but it certainly can help me stay on track. And so anyway, thank you, Herb.
Well,
Appreciate it.
yeah, you're welcome. One of the experiences I had in one of my workshops is a young man jumped when we were discussing all of this in step four, and he jumped right up, and there's 200 people in the room. He jumped right up. He says, Herb, he's yelling at me, Herb, Herb, Herb. And I said, what,
I
Jay?
like this guy already.
Oh my God, he was wonderful. Just a young, enthusiastic guy. He says,
Mhm.
reality's not personal.
Mhm.
And I said, you got it. You got it. Absolutely. It's not personal. It just is.
It ain't about you, buddy. That's a,
Yeah, it's just it's objective. It's nature. It's how material reality evolves. It's just
yeah.
and it cuts such a slack for other people. People are just doing what they do in order to attempt to survive and thrive. And it's
Mhm.
not personal. Whatever they're doing says everything about them. It says nothing about me. So
Right.
when I'm working with somebody and they want some basic solution, I say, so identify the principle. What's the
Yep.
principle? That value judgment. What's the principle? Then take the high road
Yeah.
and always be generous. And they go,
Mhm.
oh, do I always have to operate on principle and take the high road and be generous? I said, no, absolutely not. But you always have to live with the consequences.
That's right. It's like thank God we don't always have to, knowing the right thing is I mean, yeah, I do better than I used to, but it's like, that for today and tomorrow can be different. But it's like it's just when you say that, it's when we talk about no, we're not in charge of what reality is, and that includes everybody else in it. See, that's what you're including there. You're going like, no, that's not just the weather. That's how my wife is processing something downstairs. How somebody else is saying something, and it's like, and then you think about, and this is one of the things I think I've come to 40 years of doing this work and as a therapist, how much fucking energy we waste. I mean, we just poke holes in our gas tank and just drive around complaining about our gas mileage. It's like we have so much good, and talk about some of these philosophers. One of Seneca says basically people complain about life being too short. He says it's not too short. We just waste most of it.
Yeah.
And it's like wow. It's like we just we a friend of mine says it this way. We understand the serenity prayer. He says we just do it backwards. We apply all this effort into things that we don't stand a chance in control, and then there's always those few things that we could do something about.
There's nothing
Don't think,
nothing left after trying to
no,
manage stuff right now
don't step away, kid. Don't bother me.
that we don't spend the energy on the things we can change, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right, but that's the total point of a 12-step process. I'm sorry, let me just finish this, Julia. That's the total point of a 12-step process to become conscious,
Yeah.
to become aware. Like what everybody here is just absolutely saying is, I need to know better in order to do better. Even if I don't believe about the knowing better, at least I have a mentor that tells me what to do better. And if I do that, eventually I'll know better.
Absolutely.
Julie, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on your lines.
No problem. I think we just started at the same time. I was going to say the wisdom to know the difference, like for me, sometimes comes with the experience. And I had to bang my head against the wall enough times to be willing to also, take the wisdom that others were sharing rather than to figure it out all by myself.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's the
Yeah.
brilliance of step 10, which I consider is the tool of emotional sobriety, where he says in the 12 and 12, it's a spiritual axiom. Whenever I'm disturbed, there's something amiss with me. I'm out of alignment with reality. Those are my terms. I'm out of alignment with reality if I'm disturbed. If I'm in the flow, there's peace.
there's some natural principle I'm fighting against. And how I like to think about it is, if you're skiing, um, you're in alignment with gravity, like you're doing well when you're in alignment with gravity and you're going down the hill. If I'm trying to ski uphill, like I guess some people do cross country or whatever, but it takes a lot more energy to fight your way up. And if I'm standing there screaming at the hill and screaming at gravity that I need it to change because I want to get up the hill, I can waste a lot of energy doing that also. It's not very effective, like you said. But it's not always so clear in relationships with other people, right? Because I do have those glasses on. And at least now, a lot of the time when I'm disturbed, I know I have glasses on and I can know that there's maybe something that I don't know. I don't always know what it is. A lot of the time I don't. And a lot of the time I'm still at the point where I just have to pause and say, I'm not in a good headspace right now. And I need to take a break.
We've also created a new expression because from now on, I'm going to use the expression, you might as well be skiing uphill.
Yeah.
Because that when you said that, I thought, and I don't ski, but it's because we're talking about gravity. It's so easy to get. It's like,
No alignment with
which one
reality.
is harder, Yeah.
And complaining the whole time that we're not moving, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a paragraph in step 4 on page 47, and I think this applies here. It says, we thought conditions drove us to drink, and drink you can replace with be unhappy or be dissatisfied with life. And when we tried to correct those conditions and found that we couldn't, to our entire satisfaction, our drinking went out of hand or our thinking went out of hand, and we became alcoholics. It never occurred to us that we needed to change ourselves to meet the conditions, whatever they were.
That's it. Exactly.
And that is in a nutshell, that's the emotional sobriety piece. It's like I'm never going to change water into wine or wine into water. Like it to meet the conditions that I needed to. So, it's my choice. This is the good news that finding out that, I can change my mind was like miraculous. Like I don't need to be stubborn and stuck my whole life. And and just being wrong is actually quite freeing.
Yeah. Just an aside, I find these are really good things that help me remember that I'm still an alcoholic. When you said turning wine into water, I heard from Tequila Boy immediately. First, he said, "Why would you do that?" It's like, I no cognitive process for me. He just says that to me immediately. I'm going like, it's like. It's just, and that's just a good reminder. People get nervous when they hear that. They go like, "No, that just reminds you that you're still an alcoholic." It's like, don't just take it as a good reminder. We don't get rid of anything.
No. I'm a fan of Michael Singer and in his talks and in his latest book, Living Untethered. He talks a lot about science, right? And he talks about the Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago and how that created all the energy and material that took all these billions of years to get to today, right? And he's like, you or I, I'm going to complain about how things arise today, when it took all this time to get here and all these things, whether you think it's divine or not, and however your concept is, it still took all that process, planets forming, creatures coming out of the primordial ooze and developing into humans with brains, and just so I can complain about traffic, right? It's like it took like marvel in the idea that it took all of this, all this time and energy and coincidence or design to get to this point instead of fighting against it.
I think sometimes stepping back and having that sense of awe can be so important, and not just in a, oh, I'm not that important kind of way. Also that sometimes the situation is not that important, the traffic isn't that important, but it can be so easy to get, in the habit of our daily routines and to pay attention to like the little things we're used to. It becomes routine, and that's part of recovery. I sit in the morning, I listen to the birds, and to have those moments where, I don't know, I try something new, or I'm really amazed by the world. And I guess that's not step 4, but
That's good. Beautiful.
Thom, did you want to ask if anybody has questions or
Yeah, I think that's it.
participate?
Yep, we've got some time, so let's go to the. Oh, look, Martha jumped right in. Hey, Martha, let's get you unmuted here. You can ask any questions about step 4 or join in the discussion.
Sure. I did want to join into the discussion a little bit, especially on the serenity prayer, because, what I found myself doing a lot of times, especially years ago, was really trying to find, okay, what can I change? What can I change? What do I have to let go of? And I'm trying to figure all this thing, and I'm missing what I'm praying for, which is in the first line. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, so that I'm actually I need to drop all my ego stuff, because if I don't do that first, then I'm trying to work out what I need to change and the wisdom, and I am using that consciousness again that created all the problems in my life to begin with. That my big ego is now in charge again, and it's going to do the spiritual right thing to do. My spiritual ego will take over and do it, as opposed to really dropping all those defenses, all those arguments, all that stuff, and connecting with God. And then when I'm in that serenity, I will be more able to clearly decipher the truth about this situation, the reality of the situation, and the acceptance of it all, right? And honestly, I don't know how many times, but I can't change much. I can only change me. And it usually comes down to that. I mean, the odd time I can, cut the lawn and make my lawn look better. But about a situation, it is more important for me to have that serenity, to have the clarity of thought that is more connected to my true self, not my ego. Anyway, I wanted to contribute that.
My preface to inviting people to pray the serenity prayer is usually something like, what can we influence? We can't control anything, but what can we influence? And wisdom comes from making mistakes and correcting them.
Yes, I like that.
Thanks, Martha.
Right. We always have to influence from the inside out. We influence by changing ourselves, not by, because I'll be happy to tell you how you should change, Herb. I'll make a list.
Yeah, well, catch me if you can.
And there's a reason why the phrase is hard-earned wisdom, right? Because it's only through the living experience and mistaking that we wind up with how not to do things, right? All right, we got more hands. Bird, I'm going to ask you to unmute and get you on the screen here since you're on video. Thank you.
Bird, alcoholic addict. I am just 7 months new into my sobriety, and I'm realizing that I have a huge disassociation with emotions and feelings. And my question is how I've been struggling with step 4 on how to tackle step 4 when you are like really disconnected with feelings and emotions
My very
around
first, yeah,
sobriety.
yeah, no, it's a really good question. My first step 4 was an autobiography. It's what I could do in my very first year. I couldn't do anything else other than write down what I thought was my
Right.
story. And that was the best I could do that year, and it was good enough. Yeah, we get a sponsor to help you. That's really for me, the key was to have a knowledgeable, experienced person guiding me. Yeah,
I would say just the willingness that you're willing to do the fourth step, that counts for a lot.
yeah,
You know, we do what we
yeah,
can as willingly and as honestly and as openly as we can. And I think you're on the right road.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, stick around. Nice to have someone new join our crew. All right, Deb, you are next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Deb. I'm an alcoholic, and thank you so much. I really, it's so awesome to hear all of this. I actually just have more of a question. So my question is so I had 22 and a half years. I went out, and I have almost 16 months. But and I've done quite a few 4 steps, but many times I have gotten no relief. Like it's like, okay, I'm wrong. Like what else is new? I fucked up. I'm wrong. I this like whatever. Like, okay, tell me what I don't know. And like somebody was saying, like there's freedom in being wrong. I'm always wrong with the dynamic of the whatever that I'm dealing with. Well, my question is, when you have looked at your part, or if you're not getting relief, then where's the disconnect, I guess, is my question. And I just want to say thank you again, but that was my question. Thank you.
It's a really, really good question, but it would require a dialogue with you to find out what it is you have done. I've been around a long time and talked to a lot of people and heard them say, I've done the steps. And then when I start asking them questions, they can't remember what they did. If you can't remember what you did and you don't have any experience with it, you didn't do it. You did some kind of checkbox thing or some kind of routine. I'm not saying that's your experience. I also needed some professional help. I needed support from a therapist and etc. So, but I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying I've never yet found the steps wanting. I have found information about the steps wanting. I have found guidance from people who think they know what they're doing inaccurate and misinformed and not helpful at all. So all I'm saying is it would require, you're welcome to email me and we'll have a conversation. herbk12@hotmail.com.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Herb.
part of what you're talking about, Herb, is what Potash was saying. It's like it's. I mean, I've always said like saying I did the steps is sort of like I have a toolbox and I used every one of the tools now. It's like okay, I did the hammer. It's like you spend a lifetime. I mean, if you've ever watched somebody who's really a good at carpentry, mastering the use of a hammer is a pretty amazing thing. It's like and it saves a lot of pain in my thumb, but it's like I mean, and it's what you said, Thom. It's like we could be all this information is so deep and has so much range. We're constantly diving into it, seeing different parts of it, hearing different perceptions from each other, and working on different ways to apply it. It's like it's never the same. Anybody who, and Herb, I'm sure you got this way too. It's like anytime somebody speaks with things just like this is the definitive truth, I'm bye. I'll see you later. But because it's just I just don't trust that.
Yeah, and I do want to comment when I talked about being wrong, it was not being about having blame. It meant my perception, right? That there's ability to accept that I'm seeing things not entirely clear, and that's being flexible in that way has been a gift, right? Not being so dug in to my perception of reality and what the way things are supposed to be in order for me to be okay. Letting go of that has been true freedom for me.